Hello and welcome to the I Must Ask You a Question show. We have a special guest with us today, David Kauffman from Sarasota, Florida, and he is the president of Empowering Small Business. He's a speaker, he's an author, and he's even in the Amish Mennonite culture. And boy, do they know about change, especially what he knows about how to create and grow small businesses. We look forward to hearing from David. And what we want, David, I must ask you a question. So, you know about change. What
Yep.
can businesses do to adapt to change?
Well, there's several things they can do. Number one is accept the fact that you need to change. It seems like there's always a resistance to change. People don't like to change, but change is important. In fact, I have a quote that says this: in order to be relevant, you must change. And it's kind of it's a mind scramble because we think relevant stays the same. It means parallel, but you have to change to stay parallel. So I'm a pilot, and you're flying along, and you have a crosswind, and it turns you off just 1 degree. But 1 degree over a long period of time can lead you into a different state. Much less the wrong airport. I've done that before. I landed at the wrong airport before.
Oh, no.
But so we have to accept the fact that change is important. Change is what keeps us relevant. I could talk. There's a whole graphic on there that I can talk about. I'll have to bring it up here in just a little bit. But number two is things that your question was, what can businesses do to change? I think another thing is understanding their client base, understand their customers, and knowing their needs and their wants. My mentor said there's only two reasons why people buy anything from you. That's because they have to or want to.
Right. And
so if you understand those two, it will help you to make the necessary changes to go along with your customers.
Right. Huh. Heather, we just got a comment. Heather's telling us there's no sound, and I'm hearing you fine, and you're hearing me fine, I guess.
Yes.
So, yeah. I don't know where we're having a sound issue. So anyway, she says howdy.
Oh, hi, Heather. Even if you can't hear me, hi.
Yeah. So let's get back to what we're discussing. So the adaptability of businesses to change. And yeah, I hear you on your points there. In fact, let me go ahead and bring up the graphic because I saw you post this on Facebook and I thought, I've lived this. I have lived this graphic.
Yeah, there it is. This is what we call the sigmoid curve. The sigmoid curve is something that most entrepreneurs, most business owners are doing without knowing what they're doing. So what I did is I put it into a graph form to help you understand why it's so important. So if you could go all the way down here to the bottom, you can see where it says entrepreneur. That's where a business starts. And the first curve, the blue, follow it all the way up, then it turns yellow and goes back down. That's the life cycle of any organization. It's the life cycle of any business, of any relationship, if you don't change. Okay, so the beginning is entrepreneur, and you start emerging out of the entrepreneurial stage, and because you're putting in systems and developing strategies, and all of a sudden your business starts emerging. And then it becomes to the established point. Now, the established point of any business is when the owner or the leadership kind of says, "Okay, we're done. We've kind of reached a milestone. I'm just going to relax and enjoy what we've built." And shortly after that, it can literally get into the eroding phase. And if it gets past that point, it's pretty much hard. It's pretty hard to get it back into a viable situation. So before you get to the established section of a business, and it can be this from emerging to established can be years. It can be 1 year. It can be 20 years. So think about the taxi industry. Somebody had an idea of, hey, let's charge people to hop in a car and go places, and it emerged. And for years, it was emerging as the best way to have transportation. And then Uber comes along and messes their plan up. Okay, it disrupts everything. So the taxi industry had a choice to make: keep riding it out, and eventually it being the death of them, or join in with the Uber. Okay. So, what we recommend in order to stay relevant, you must change. And we recommend starting another sigmoid curve. Okay. Starting another part of a business. And so for me, it was the maid service. I started the maid service back in 2008 and emerged into a quick growing company. And then I saw that there was the crest, that the top was coming. I saw customers, competitors were coming, and so I started licensing my company, and that was another sigmoid. And we went through the same stage, the entrepreneurial stage, and then we started emerging in that. And you can see here moments of stability. Okay, that's what us entrepreneurs live for, is the moments of stability. If you don't change, you will end up going away from the original intent of your business. And then I put the mission, vision, and purpose over here on the side.
I'm going to try to blow that up again.
So. Yeah, let's see if we can blow it up. There you go. The mission, vision, and purpose on the side here. And it says this: be flexible on what you do, but steadfast on why you do it. So it just reiterates the fact that if we don't change, if we don't add another sigmoid curve, we will eventually go away from our original purpose and our original design.
I agree 100%. One thing, let's see, let me go back to where we can see each other here.
There you go.
Okay. So, I don't know if you've read much Simon Sinek. I actually got a lot of my ideas about starting with why on that. And to me, that became a crucial part, because if you don't know the why, right, then the how and the what doesn't matter. Correct. And so what I see you pointing out here is the same thing. Without that why, you have no real vision and direction. You'll just keep trying to do to do things, right, to make you feel better, with no clear direction on a general purpose or ideology.
That's right. Without the MVP, mission, vision, and purpose, you could be in veterinarian school, and your next sigmoid could be, becoming an astronaut. They have nothing in common. And so you literally need a guide to be flexible on what you do, but be steadfast on why you do it. That's what keeps you close to the mission, vision, and purpose. And I find it amazing that a lot of companies I work with all around the country, they're successful without a mission, vision, and purpose. I mean, it's simply because of hard work and pushing, and they're doing this, but they could have done it a lot easier if they would have had that mission, vision, and purpose, the why around why they're doing it.
Well, and what I see when those corporations do that is they lose their sense of community. So at one point, let's say Walmart was trying to be the low-cost provider for local small rural communities, to bring them products, goods, and services that everyone could afford. And that was the vision of Sam Walton, right? That was his why. And then when he passed away, the leadership changed.
Right.
And the leadership did not have that vision, mission, or purpose. They just wanted the money that came along with it. So that's everything became about the what, right? Delivering the lowest cost. Actually, they started changing up what low cost meant, but delivering those products, goods, and services for the most profit for their shareholders. That changed their what, and they lost their why, and they lost the community behind the purpose.
And it's interesting because Dollar General kind of picked up on that and said, hey, we have a great example. You go to any small town, rural town, there's brand new Dollar Generals, and they're eating Walmart's lunch because they lost their way, they lost their why, they lost why. And you think about this. So in 1868, I think it was, a little company over in Finland it was a lumber company. They'd literally go into the woods, chop down a tree, and mill it and sell the lumber. And then from there, they started another sigmoid, and they said, well, we already have lumber. What else can we do with lumber? We can make paper. So they got into the paper business, and then they rode that one out. And then they said, well, let's make silk. We already have the machines to make paper. Let's convert it to make silk. And then from there, they went to rubber. And all of those things have one thing in common, and that's trees. And then from there, they got into telecommunications, and it just kept on and on and on until about, well, when did cell phones come out? Nokia is the company I'm talking about. So originally, Nokia was a lumber company and went all the way up into the telecommunications. And then this last time that they had an opportunity to start another sigmoid, they said, smartphones it's just a fad. It won't be here forever. Nobody wants a computer on their phone. They just want these cool little flip phones. And they missed the chance to innovate. And then by the time they saw that this wasn't going to be just a fad, they hit the market too late with their own smartphones, and it just killed them. So you have to be able to change in order to stay relevant. And we see this in the community where I come from, the Amish and the Mennonite community. I'm blessed to be able to have been brought up in that kind of environment. It taught me so many valuable things. And I get to coach and speak and consult with amazing Mennonite and Amish companies all across the country. I have a very cool niche that I'm able to service.
And who can get into that one, right?
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. So, but they understand change. They're in some regards, they're very resistant to change in a lot of ways, and that's pros and cons. There's pros and cons to that. But they're adapting. They're saying, hey, listen, what used to work back 20 years ago when all of us were farmers doesn't work. The think doesn't work now that farming is really geared towards the big farms. The small family farm is going extinct. And so they had to change. They had to come to a point that says, if we want to stay relevant, if we want to keep our way of life, we have to be willing to give up a few things so that we can stay relevant on the things that we can't not be flexible in. So I'm really impressed with that community, the Amish and the Mennonite community, of how they view change, and they're not scared to face it because it's their survival. They have to change. But the challenge then for them is, how do I change without affecting my deep faith, my belief, the core that they have? How do they change that? And then they're coming to the point where I think they're saying, we can still have our beliefs and still, drive cars, still drive, instead of horse and buggies. And so there's a big shift happening, especially in the Amish community, where they're saying, in order for us to even stay relevant, for us to survive, we have to change. It seems like the whole country is in that shift right now, where there's just so much change going on. And while it's very uncomfortable, a lot of times it brings out the best in us. Sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of times it does. If we wouldn't have changed, we'd still be driving Model Ts. Right. Now we're talking about driving driverless cars. Seems far-fetched, but in order to stay relevant, we are going to one day, you and I probably, if we live long enough, will be driving in a driverless car.
Well, something I found out or I thought was interesting is how many paradigm shifts occurred in 2020 on into 2021. And they were actually happening so fast that it was hard to track. If you weren't watching for paradigm shifts, then you didn't even know what happened. And fortunately, I felt like God had led me to sell my financial practice back in April of 2019 and actually start this 3 million% peer advisory program and build that out. But what we did do is we had a group of doctors within the community that had a peer advisory group that they said, hey, we can't meet in person, which the rest of us were all meeting in person in groups of 10, businesses of 10. And so what that group of doctors did said, hey, we need to make this virtual. And I kind of knew that needed to happen, but I wasn't exactly sure. I wasn't well adept with Zoom or anything like that. And so we started playing around with it. Some of them knew Zoom better than others. Sure. And so they actually needed to remain in their offices, and they only had an hour, which each of our meetings were lasting about 2 hours. And so our curriculum and structure already provided for that hour, but they were kind of our test plot, if you will.
Sure.
And our test group, and they were actually so efficient in how they were doing it. We had others that were considering it, but whenever COVID hit, whenever the paradigm shift occurred and everyone was forced to stay home, we already had everything in place to convert, right? And so our pivot point was already, we already knew what to do. We already knew how to do it, stuff like that. And so we grew significantly through 2020. And just last month, we grew another 20% in our membership. But it's these shifts that are occurring almost monthly, if not daily.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know? And so the cool part is getting to speak into that. Even our business owners that have been through similar circumstances, and I love what you're doing with EdgeCon and all the different things that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that. How did EdgeCon go, and tell the audience what that's about?
Yeah, so in 2019, actually 2019 was the first EdgeCon. EdgeCon is the most transformative business conference in the US. 2019 was our first one. 2020 was our second one. So we just finished up with 2018 was the first one, 2019. And we just finished up in February with a fabulous conference here in Sarasota, Florida. We had people flying in all over, had about 13 speakers. It was an amazing conference. And then we started hearing about a month, or we were hearing a little bit about this COVID-19. We weren't quite sure what it was going to do. And literally about a month after that, the country went into, the world went into a lockdown. And so I was like, oh my goodness, man, we squeaked through this one just in time. And I was thinking, like all things do, they come and go. And I said, we'll be out of this thing in 2 or 3 months, Well, that wasn't the case. And so I likened this whole thing to, we were in the basketball court, and 2020 started off really great. I mean, it was a rocking year, and basically I had no one in front of me, and a lot of our companies had no one in front of me, and we were just getting ready to make our shot, and all of a sudden COVID, the opponent comes in and blocks our shot. What do you do at that point when everything, your whole game plan was like dry erased off the board and said it's not there anymore? And so my clients, they immediately started calling me and said, Dave, we're just going to hunker down. We're not going to market. We're going to just act like nothing happened and just stay here. And I said, no. You are still in the game. The game is not over. You're still in the game. You have to do what you have to do, and that's pivot and attack from a different angle. Listen, these things happen. And so you have to be able to change. And so we started helping our clients, and ironically, some of our clients are having the best year ever because of that they doubled down on marketing. They didn't pretend like, in a basketball game, if you stop mid-game because somebody blocked your shot and you still hold the ball, you're going to become prey. Somebody's going to steal the ball from you. Your competitors are going to come and grab it and make the shot going the other way, because that's the momentum is the other way. And so I help my clients understand that. And then it came time for me to start thinking about EdgeCon 2020. And I was like, oh, we're just going to cancel it. Because how can you have an event when the whole nation is scared to go outside? And so I had in my mind, I already told some key people, no, we're just going to cancel it. And I was in Indiana in a hotel, and I felt like God woke me up and said, do EdgeCon, but just change something. And I said, okay, God, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to have EdgeCon? He said, do it virtually. You told your people you have to pivot and shoot from a different angle. And so I started putting the plans together, and we created this EdgeCon virtual conference. It was, Tim, it was amazing. It was
And you just had that recently, right?
2 weeks ago. We just finished up two and a half weeks ago. It was amazing. 9 speakers, world changers. And the whole thing was about overcoming. The whole thing was about exactly about embracing the struggle. And anytime you're asked to change, there is a conflict. Change is not easy. It's a struggle. But everything is on the other side of change. Right. Everything is on the other side of the struggle, and we have to learn to embrace change. We have to learn to embrace the struggle. And so we had the biggest crowd ever on virtual, and it makes sense because now the world is your oyster, and it was just a fantastic event. But we're looking forward to getting back into a real live scenario in 2022 in Nashville. We're going to have it in Nashville.
Great.
So I'd love for you and Heather to come.
Well, thank you very much. And, here's something else that I would like to ask. So if everyone has been adapting to these paradigm shifts and they've been changing so fast and things like that, put you on the spot here. What is it in the foreseeable future that you could maybe give business owners an idea as to maybe a mindset change or changes that could be coming? What is your next move for EdgeCon? I mean, just give us a general idea of, I don't know, just vision.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not. I don't to this, but I really believe when it comes to live events, I believe they're going to be bigger and better than ever before. Because here's why I say that: people are not meant to communicate this way, the way you and I are communicating right now. We are made for relationship. We're made to touch, to feel, and this is great because we have audio and video. We can hear you and see you, but there's just something about humans being together. And I think once all this stuff goes away, I think virtual events are going to be the thing of the past. There's already terms out. I'm zoomed out. I'm tired of Zoom. I know people that did not come to EdgeCon because it was virtual. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I believe some good things are going to happen. I really do. COVID changed the world forever. I think social distancing will be a thing for a long, long time because we're being programmed to think a certain way. I go down the aisles of a Walmart or a grocery store, and I can almost promise you that you'll see people start widening the gap when you go around them. And to me, that's unfortunate that we've already been programmed in less than a year to put people away. But there is a longing for that coming together, and I think events will be bigger and better than ever before. So I'm excited about the future. There's going to be some challenges with the new administration and the ways that business is being run, higher fuel prices. We're already starting to see that. But you know what? We've been through stuff before. We as a country, we as people around the world are very resilient. And, my talk at EdgeCon, I did the opening talk, was when does a frog become a tadpole? That was the subject line of my talk, and the answer to that, it never was a tadpole in its mind.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a frog. That's why he struggled. That's why he would, because a tadpole cannot just sit there and float. When they stop swimming, they start going down to the bottom. Okay. So a tadpole never was, a tadpole never was a tadpole. It was always a frog. A caterpillar was never a caterpillar. It was always a butterfly. And that's what we as people have to understand, that our struggle, the change that we're going through does not define us. It refines us. It makes us even better. And so my passion, my whole thing about that COVID gave me was the fact that I need to help people to understand that change is a good thing. And I believe a lot of good things are going to happen in 2021, 22, 23.
I agree with you there. Heather's been doing a great job of commenting here. She likes your analogy. It was always a frog. So mind you.
Fantastic. I like that.
Very accurate. Very accurate. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dave. Taking time out of your busy schedule, and congratulations on all your recent successes with EdgeCon and things like that. We greatly appreciate you inviting us. I do hope to see you there, and seeing how we can work together on helping people gain relationships faster and deepen those relationships in a meaningful way to make them benefit their business and their life. So thank you again for joining us. And audience, please feel free to continue the conversation in the comments. We want to hear your questions. David is tagged in this, and so he and I both can give some responses, and we look forward to hearing those questions. And in the meantime, we will see you again next Monday at 2:00. Thank you very much for joining the I Must Ask You a Question show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.